Hey guys, Zach here, and today I want to show you how I made this awesome riparium. But first, I'll have to take you back a couple of days where I took apart the old scape. So, the realistic first thing to do is just to take this apart. But before I do want to explain this tank, as a lot of you probably haven't seen the video on it. It is just three spray foam islands that you can see the first one right here. And they are floating off of the bottom. And I've anchored them down using fishing line and some rocks, and I really like how this scape turned out, and it really was a test just to see how it came out and to, sort of see how the spray foam was after a couple of months, and to see if the islands fell apart or if the fishing line would break or what would happen if the plants that grew on it would weigh it down enough to sink the islands, which they haven't, which I'm really happy about. And you can see that while there is lots of plant growth down here, the island is still floating, which I think is really cool, and I do think I will revisit this and try to revamp it in future. And I do think I want to do it on a larger scale. That'll just give me a little more free sort of thinking, and it'll make me be able to do a little bit better with the scape. But for the time being, I want to take down everything in this tank and start with a blank canvas. Now, as you can see, I do have a couple of immersed growing plants that are normally here. Terrestrial plants, I've got arrow plants here, and then back here I've got some earth stars that are growing immersed right now. And I didn't originally plan to have these in this tank. They just kind of fell in, and I plunked them in just because when you do want to take terrestrial plants and use them immersed, it does take a little while for their roots to develop. They will grow a different type of root than when they are planted in the soil. That's just how it works, and those roots do take a little while to develop. So what I'm thinking for this tank in future, what I'm going to rescape it as, is something that's got a whole lot of area up here. So a bunch of driftwood and spiderwood with lots of nooks and crannies where I can put a bunch of terrestrial plants up here that can grow in this water, and it'll create a nice ecosystem, and I can put other terrestrial plants that I'm planning to use in even further future scapes. I can plunk them in here, and they'll grow their immersed roots, and then they'll be ready for use in whatever other scapes I choose to use them in. So, let's get this cleaned out. So I'm pulling out the plants right now, and I just wanted to show you guys this. This plant was in this small tank right here, and look at just the size of its roots. Like, it is absolutely gigantic of a root system, and it really is quite shocking to me that it grew this large while inside of this small container. But I just wanted to show you guys this. Now, I've gotten the tank all cleaned out, and as I previously said, I want the main focal point of the tank to be up here with all, like, a bunch of immersed growth. What I'm seeing is like a forest of plants here. But just because I have immersed growth doesn't mean I don't want some aquarium plants in here. However, I want to keep it sort of like a forest floor, kind of an undergrowth, I guess you could call it, like a bunch of roots coming down. Looks really cool. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to use some spiderwood and try to keep it like up here. And then I'll have some lower light plants down here. So I'm thinking Anubias, maybe a couple of like small crypts, and that's going to be about it in the bottom. And as such, I'm going to keep it dirted, so I'm just going to use aqua soil as the base. So let's get the substrate in. Before we get any further into the scape, if you guys are enjoying the video, please consider subscribing. It does greatly help the channel. And with that out of the way, let's get back into the scape. So if you want to talk about an easy substrate layer, that was super easy. Just a scoop or two of topsoil and it's pretty much done, right? But what I'm thinking, as I've previously stated, is some spiderwood. So I've got these pieces of spiderwood that I'm hoping are going to fit, and I just want them to kind of hang down like this so that the roots do have a place to go, but it also does look like true roots coming down. Kind of look like underside foliage, so just kind of hanging down like this, and I think it'll look really neat. So let me kind of work around with this and see what I can come up with. So I've just mixed around a couple of pieces, and this is the best that I've come up with. There's like this much room below the roots, so any crypts or anything that I put in there are going to be pretty undisturbed. However, with this, what I've got is I've got this sort of dividing layer, I guess you could call it, where the roots kind of start. But then up here, let me take you guys a little bit closer, there's a lot of room for planting and jamming any terrestrial plants in all of those nooks and crannies, all along the top of the tank, and that's what I want. I want to be able to have plants just everywhere up top, so I'm really happy with how this looks. But what I want to do is I do want to secure it down, so all I'm going to do is just glue the pieces of wood together and then maybe attach it to the back or put a rock on. I'll see what I can come up with. So I've got it all done. It's glued just up here, and you can see this little rock right there that kind of pops out. See, it's on that piece of wood. That rock's going to be more than enough, or should be more than enough, to hold down the wood. It was submerged not too long ago, so there shouldn't be too much buoyancy to it, and that rock is more just for safety. If I find that they're not floating, I'll probably remove it. If not, I'll leave it in for like a week or two and then take it out. It's going to be hidden by the foliage up there, so not a big deal. Now moving down here, I think I'm just going to put in a couple more small, real small round rocks like the one that's holding down the wood, and that's going to be about it for down there. And then I'll move on to planting. So let me get that in and fill it up. So it's been 2 days since you guys have last seen this tank, and it's really turned out quite good. I love how it's come together. Now, obviously, some of the plants in here you might look at and be a little iffy about, like the snake plant. I know that snake plants are a type of succulent and they might not do the best, but I just want to monitor it and see, because I know that depending on the type of plant, sometimes you can have success, sometimes you can't have success in a immersed style. So I figured I'd test it out in this and just see what kind of works and what doesn't. Obviously, I know that the arrow plants in the very back, they work, and then I've just got the earth stars. Those have been in a couple of tanks, so I think they'll work too. But other than that, I'm really happy with how it all came together. I did decide to not put any crypts in the bottom and leave this pretty bare bones, and that's just because I know that as the roots grow down, it will sort of start to interrupt the lighting that the crypts can get, as well as maybe ruin the look of having the crypts down here. So instead, I'm just gonna leave this very bare bottom, and in future, if I decide that I want a little bit more green in there, I might add in some moss or maybe just a small carpeting plant in the front, and that would be about it. This is going to be low light levels. Like, I've got the window back here that'll be open, and that's all the light that this tank is going to get, so I don't want to put anything in just yet. And I know that the terrestrial plants that are up top are going to do fine with just the window lighting. So that is everything for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed this build. If you have enjoyed, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.